Amid the diplomatic flurry to secure an end to the war in Ukraine, NATO defense chiefs, they are meeting virtually today. They're discussing potential security guarantees for Kyiv. And as CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams reports, those guarantees could prove crucial for Ukraine to sign onto any ceasefire agreement.
To agree to any peace deal, Ukrainians want to know exactly what security guarantees are on the table. And by security guarantees, they mean protection from the US and other countries if Russia invades again. Remember, Russia invaded in 2014 and in 2022, and international agreements have failed to protect Ukraine. So they have some trust issues. The Trump administration has ruled out NATO membership for Ukraine, which would protect the country. Russia has ruled out peacekeepers from NATO countries. Finding something that would be acceptable to all parties may be next to impossible. Meanwhile, overnight here in Ukraine, a Russian drone attack targeted an industrial area in the Odessa region, according to officials, starting a large fire. Another drone attack wounded 14 in the Sumy region, including 3 children. So while others talk about peace, Ukrainians are still living and dying in a war zone. And many Ukrainians tell us that they simply do not believe that Vladimir Putin really wants to end the war, or that he'll stick to any peace agreement that he signs. Russia's foreign minister said yesterday that Russia is not against a meeting between Putin and Vladimir Zelensky, but it would have to be prepared very carefully. That sounds as if the Russian leader may already be slow-walking things. Holly Williams, CBS News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Let's bring in Brian Taylor. He's a director of the Moynihan Institute of Global Affairs at Syracuse University. Brian, thank you for joining us today. We've seen Russia carry out attacks on Ukraine as these talks continue. Can you walk us through Putin's strategy here?
Well, I think the important thing to stress is that nothing has really changed from the Russian point of view, despite the flurry of activity over the last week or so. Vladimir Putin remains determined to subjugate Ukraine to Russian control in some form or another. And he continues, as Holly's report just indicated, to launch missile and drone attacks, and military attacks continue along the front line. So Putin is really betting on a military solution, not a political one, despite all of the talks that took place over the last week. So I think the real question is, what decisions will European countries and the United States make to put some pressure on Putin to try and bring him seriously to the negotiating table? Because right now he's not particularly serious about making a deal.
And President Trump, he continues to push for a meeting with Zelensky and Putin, but then recognizes Putin will likely not concede. So will another round of talks help to end this war? Or is this time to consider another alternative, which, even as we say that, the question is what that other alternative could possibly be?
I honestly don't think another round of talks will make any difference until something changes more significantly, either militarily on the battlefield or economically and politically for Russia. So if President Trump wants to bring about a deal, President Putin has to feel like he has no other choice because of economic and military pressure to stop his attempt to control Ukraine. Right now, he feels like the Russian military has the upper hand. Maybe it does, but in a very slight way. It's really an attrition war with the front line moving very slowly, if at all. But he doesn't see any need to stop right now. And the only thing that's going to make him stop is either if his economy is falling apart or his military can no longer move forward.
Yeah. And Brian, I want to ask you about the big picture here, because you wrote a book called The Code of Putinism, explaining how his view of the world shapes Russian politics. Where does he see Ukraine in relation to Russia? And just how has that influenced the trajectory of this war?
It's really central to this war. He has stated many times for many years that he considers Ukrainians and Russians to be one nation. He considers Ukraine to be an artificial country, unjustly created, and he believes that Russia can only be secure if Ukraine is in some way under Russian political domination. So despite having signed agreements that were supposed to protect Ukrainian integrity and sovereignty, his real vision is a Ukraine that is subordinate to Russia. It's a very imperial vision, but that's what he's been pursuing. And unless we recognize that, we're not going to get any closer to figuring out a way to stop this war and help Ukraine win.
Some very great insight there. Brian Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today on 24/7.